Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Right, before we start, going back to yesterday evening's video, why did I have such a bad day? Well, following on from that, before I go back there, we have had a reasonable night's sleep. I do say reasonable, we were still up at 4 o'clock. Thank you, fluffy alarm clock. Still, that's how it is. Yes, so why did I not have a good day? I'll have to temper it. It wasn't all bad really, it was just that, and let me go through it. Because we were doing repotting demos, I decided to take my camera in and the associated bits and bobs that go with it so that I could close in on the work being done. Like I do here when I'm repotting, I position the camera so you can all see. But I'm recording onto the camera at that point. That's all I'm doing. The magic to get it to YouTube for you to see it happens afterwards. However, this would effectively be live, so I'd be filming what was being shown on the projector, so it needed extra gadgets and stuff. And I had done it a long time ago, but I'd forgotten how. So prior to going to the meeting, we tried it again, worked out how to do it because there's quite a lot of settings involved, a little bit of looking stuff up on YouTube to remind me. As I said, if you need to find out how to do something, there'll be a YouTube video, there always is. There was one nearly good enough, but not quite, but it got me a fair bit of the way. So I wrote down what needed to be done in my notebook. That I always take to the meeting with all the bits and pieces to do with my treasurer's report, you know, date and everything like that, what I need to say, our balances in our bank accounts, all that sort of stuff, my report at the meeting. This is the committee meeting prior to the, you know, to the rabble turning up. the ordinary members, as we call them. The ones who pay our way, basically. Yes, so I've got all the instructions and everything, sequence of events and everything written down in my notebook. Packed everything up, loaded the car up in very, very cold temperatures. It was about 2 degrees out there, and it's a lot of trips. And as you know, thanks to last night's video, I decided to take my Cymbidium in. That had to be got out there and sat in the footwell behind the front seat, between the front seat and the back seat. Then I had to jam something in there to hold the pot upright, make sure it didn't fall over. So, and then all the other stuff had to go in the car. And my car's got a problem with the boot. Well, you call them trunks, don't you, in the States? Anyway, the flappy bit on the end of the estate that gets you into the back, it's got hydraulic pistons on it so that when you open it, it stays open. Except when it's cold, it closes on the back of your head as you lean in, which it did, and it hurt. So I actually used my tripod to hold it open while I got the rest of the stuff in, and then threw the tripod in and closed it down, ready to set off. Off I went. Although it was very cold, it wasn't cold enough for there to be any ice on the roads. Although one place on the journey, there would have been ice later in the day as the temperature dropped heading into the night again. So quite a steep downhill, and there was water running down the side, yeah. And some people thought it was funny to put their wheels in it and splash it all over the road. Well, that was going to freeze. So thank you, clever people. There's some dumbasses around in this world, there really are. Right. So, my day. I set off in the car. It was cold, but the car soon warmed up. I couldn't have it too warm in the car because of the Cymbidium. I could have dumped its blooms, couldn't it, if it got too warm. Warm blast after living out here at 12-13 degrees. So anyway, I got there. You then got to unload it all, get it all inside. We had our committee meeting. It was uneventful. just, you know, it's a sequence of events, list of things that we talk about, discuss, make decisions on, stuff like that. The only thing that came in my direction was the magazine that we produce. It's called How We Grow Our Orchids, and it's got a section on most of the genera that you would come across with some nice photos, a lot of which I supplied. And it's a major upgrade to the previous version of it, so we need to get some printed. And that's come down to me because I managed to find a reasonable quote, and it's a shop, a printing shop that's just round the corner from me, so I haven't got to travel or anything. They're good guys in there, they'll do a good job, and so that's come down to me to sort out. So I've got to go and get re-get the quote to make sure the prices haven't gone up ridiculously. If they have, I'll have to go back to the committee to get a decision again. But otherwise, I just go ahead and get 25 copies printed. We can't do it ourselves because it's an A4 magazine, you know, sort of glossy magazine. Good quality as well with the photos and everything, and because it's A4 you're starting off with A3 sheets of paper to be folded in half and stapled, and we haven't got the printing facilities. Come on then, you always wait till I start filming, don't you? Every time. Now some people are going to think that's because he hears you talking and he comes out. He's deaf, so he doesn't hear me talking. Unless he's got selective hearing like some people have got. Yeah, they hear what they want to hear and everything else is, yeah, oh, can you speak up? Selective hearing. Yes, so then the meeting finished, the committee meeting, and I had to get everything set up, ready for the, my friend Helen was starting us off with a talk on sort of why we repot, and all that sort of stuff, the need and, you know, the sort of parameters and everything like that about repotting, to be followed by the demos of actually doing it. 3 of us were doing a demo each. I got to go first, and that was planned on the grounds that our trip to that Double H nursery, which you saw the videos from that trip to that nursery, Phalaenopsis nursery, a lot of people bought the mini Phalaenopsis in bloom from that place to take home. Because a lot of them were being sold for £2, you know, with 2 spikes on, so you couldn't go wrong really. So the idea was for me to repot one of those to show what they look like when you get them out of the pot, show that little plug thing and how to take it off and everything. So it was relevant to follow on from Helen's talk, so they sort of went together one after the other. And yes, so setting the kit up, I went to get my notebook with the instructions on how to set it up, bearing in mind it took over an hour to work out how to do it. Yeah? No notebook. So I'm trying to do it from memory. And do you think I could get it working? I've now got 40 plus people sat there in nice little tidy rows with their arms folded, glaring at me because I can't get the kit working. So Lynn did a wonderful job of waffling up the front, telling them all about everything under the sun to try and give me time, and I did eventually get it going. But you're not coming in. Are you coming in or you're not coming in? Make up your mind. I know it's difficult because you haven't got much of one. Now go back to sleep. Behave yourself. You've had food, you've had drink. You've been outside, now go to sleep. Get out of my hair for a minute. Yes, so I did eventually get it all going, but unfortunately the table that the laptop was on was relatively low. I'm down on my knees trying to work with this, so my knees hurt today. So does my back because of the position I was in. And I did eventually sort of get it going. It wasn't right, but it was sort of working. But it kept dropping out of full screen, you know, so that you could see the software edges around the picture. And then it went back again. And I couldn't work out why it kept changing. It seemed to change back to full screen if I turned my back on it and walked away. I don't believe in coincidences. There was more to it than that. Anyway, so stress factor high, not doing my heart condition any good, and aches and pains as a consequence. Of course, at the end I've got to pack all that lot up again and load the car up, and then when I got back here I've got to unload it all again. So it's a big day out for me. There's a lot of exertion that I'm not used to, and in one respect I'm not supposed to do. I'm not supposed to exert myself. Everything easy and steady, you know, that's the idea. And the trouble is with these heart tablets that I take, is if I try to exert myself, somebody cuts the power. You know, it's literally, when you call for more energy, basically your body says, right, your heart needs to beat a bit quicker, you're going to need more oxygen, this, that and the other. And mine says, no, you're not having it. So I'm trying to exert myself with low batteries sort of thing. So it seems harder than it should be for doing what are relatively simple things. So that was the reason we had the bad day out. It was stress factor due to kit. It won't happen again because this morning, oh yeah, and right at the end of the meeting when I started packing up, bearing in mind all the demonstrations are up the front, the treasurer's table is up the back, out of the way, and the assistant treasurer Jane was manning that because I was up the front messing around with stuff. And the language that was going on inside my head while I was messing with this, oh. None of it came out loud because I was surrounded by people, but oh, I was in a foul mood. And right at the end, I picked up my clipboard to pack up, you know, after people had started leaving and people were packing their plants up and everything, and there was my notebook. So it was actually there all the time. I thought I'd left it at home. So the problem was that notebook, where I made those notes, that was on the last page. So I'd bought a new notebook where all the notes about my treasurer's report were. And that was what I thought the problem was. You know, I got my notebook out for the committee meeting, their nice shiny new notebook, and I thought, oh no, I've left the other one at home, because you know, I sort of had two on the go. But it was there all the time, that was the annoying thing. So what I've done this morning is I've typed it up in a nice readable, easy to follow set of instructions and stored the document on the laptop. So if ever I do it again, I can just pull the instructions up if it slipped my mind. And I got it working, no trouble at all. Sat here this morning with the instructions, and I elaborated the instructions in the document to make them very simple and clear if anybody else ever had to do it. It's not going to happen, it's only ever going to be me. It's my camera, you know, it's my game card capture unit. You know, it's all my stuff basically. It was my laptop, that's where all the software is. So I don't take all my stuff in, it's not going to happen. But just looking at being a bit more sensible about things, if we decided we didn't need the quality that my camera can produce, projected up on the screen, if we just decided for a not quite so elaborate and high quality image, we could just get a webcam and do away with all the software and the cables and everything, and just plug a webcam into the USB socket and then straight up onto the projector. And we probably wouldn't have to spend too much money. So I will put that to the committee, because then the ability to do the close-up work and everything is not dependent on me and my kit and me being there. So that will probably happen. That means I haven't got to take all that flipping kit in next time round. I think you can get a pretty good quality webcam for sort of 40-50 quid. And the Orchid Society's got plenty of money, quite honestly. They're not short of a penny or two. We have stable finances, is the way I see it. It goes up a bit, goes down a bit, but it settles around a comfortable level, you know, where we could afford for a few catastrophes, like if the hall we meet in burnt down and we had to find somewhere else. Well, that somewhere else might be quite a bit more expensive. Well, we'd be able to cope with that, you know. So there we go. That was that. And you saw, well, those that didn't see the last video, my Cymbidium got a first in its in the class I put it in. This is what they do now, because people were complaining that the certificates didn't have a date on, you know, so and they didn't necessarily have the plant name on. They just said that you got one of these with first and the class. Didn't have your name, didn't have the plant name, so we decided we'd have a simpler version, not laminated or anything like that, and we would handwrite the details on so that the certificate is more meaningful. You know, I now know that that Cymbidium got a first at the beginning of 2005 in the January meeting, so that was that. It's funny, we were talking about trophies as well, because our president passed away not too long ago. We wanted an award dedicated to his memory, so that at our shows somebody would be awarded with the so-and-so award. And as he grew an awful lot of Cattleyas, it was his passion sort of thing, and we thought we'd give that award to the best in the Cattleya Alliance at our two shows. We were talking about trophies. We stopped giving the trophies out to people. You get presented with it and you get your photo taken for the magazine, then you have to give it back, because they kept going missing and people were complaining that they had to keep them clean and stuff like that. So they just get used for, you know, recording purposes. And that was where a big discussion came up, because if we're going to have a specific award in memory of our president sort of thing, whoever gets that awarded to them ought to be able to keep it, didn't they? But then, how many are we going to have? Because we have 2 shows a year, yeah? You sort of think, well, okay, well, let somebody have it for 6 months till the next show. Well, what if they forget to bring it back in? It's quite a big discussion, the logistics of trying to do this award, and I still don't really know what we decided, because I sort of glazed over. I don't grow Cattleyas, so it's never going to come to me, is it? It's too flipping cold in here. Talking of which, I mean, my shoulders are starting to ache now, and my neck where I'm cold. It's 14 degrees in here at the moment. It's too flipping cold. And I'm letting all the heat out of the lounge here. I'm still a trifle worried. There's 2 leaves up there that are moving every now and again. Why? Where's the draft coming from? I'm pretty sure it's just the warm airflow coming in from the lounge and circulating round. Well, I hope that's all it is anyway. There could be some air leaks in this place, I suppose. Most likely places where these roof panels join the side, you know, that sort of slopey bit. It's possible, I suppose. I don't know. Anyway, there's nothing I can do about it. Not really. Yeah, so that was my day out, and you've heard me talk about my friend Brian. He often leaves an advisory comment about some of my plants, and he is what I would call an expert Cymbidium grower. And do you know what? He was there yesterday to pay his subs and attend the meeting and everything. I didn't get a chance to even speak to him yesterday, because I lost all my spare time. I lost all the sort of time when I would have had a chat to people, just gone messing about with the kit, much to my annoyance. But yes, he has given me a couple of plants in the past. He sold me a couple as well, and we often chat about plants. He watches videos now and again, but yeah, I wanted to specifically talk to him about my Cymbidium, not necessarily the actual, you know, the fact that it got a first, just the plant. Is it being grown well? Does he cast his eye over it? Is it all okay? Am I doing okay? Do these look like good flower spikes? Have they got a good number of blooms on, you know, for that type of hybrid? It's quite a few people said that they recognised one of the species as quite a dominant part of the makeup of that hybrid, but I forget which one he said. Yeah, I'm not a Cymbidium person really. I know I've got some now, but you know, so they're all recent. Apart from Hannah's one over there, they're all recent acquisitions. Don't profess to be any form of expert, but they do all seem to be growing pretty good. Not dropping leaves everywhere. They're not all covered in blotches and marks like you often see. So far so good, as they say. Yes, but you've also heard me talk about another friend at the Wessex Orchid Society, and I've filmed at his greenhouses. So I've actually got film of his growing areas. It's the one where you've got a job to get in the door because the plants grow into the path. So you've got to keep going like this as you walk down and turn sideways because he's got so many plants in there basically. And he gave me a plant. He put it in the display, not in the competitive element, just in the display. And he said, "You like growing these sort of things, don't you?" And I said, "Yes." So he gave it to me. And I recognised it straight away. It is Colmenara Masai Red. And I had this a long time ago. And I didn't know what it was called. I had to do a lot of work trying to find out. You know, because I just had Oncidium on the label, I think. Anyway, I did identify it, and it was the first ever plant I put into a show. So that's going back a long time. It was the first ever plant, and it went in the novice section and got a first, and I got a nice shiny cup with my name on it to look after. And that's when I realised they're a flipping nuisance because you have to keep polishing the blinking things, keep them clean. But I got a first in that section because it was the only plant. And it's where I realised, and what I say to other people, if you leave them at home, you won't get anything. If you take them to the show, you never know your luck. And as I said, that was the first plant I ever put in a show, and I came away with a first and a cup. So I was well pleased. But we now have another one. It has an inherent problem. Now we can talk about it. Alan is one of those people, if it's got leaves on it, he can probably grow it and grow it very well. He's just one of those people that can grow whatever he touches. And this is in a mixture of rock wool and stones. And it does have a lot of roots showing, although these don't look like active roots at the moment. They look like older tired roots. But I mean, look at the size of this latest bulb. It's a beauty. You know, both directions, that way and that way. It's got nice leaves. Now if it's in stones and rock wool, there's nothing to rot or go off in the pot. So in theory it can stay in there till it's filled the pot and grown out. But he did say that it's done something funny this time round. The latest growth pushed some roots up the back that they're all in the air. But there are other roots that have gone down in the pot. But yeah, it's got some older leafless back bulbs, big, good plump ones anyway. And there's no sign of any new growth yet, but after those flowers fade, I suspect it will put up a new growth. Probably only one. Looking at the way it grows at the moment, it looks like one new growth at a time for now. One day it might put up two, and then once you get, with these Oncidium types, they put up a new growth out of the base of the latest bulb, and that grows on, and that's where your next spike or spikes will come from. But if at some point or another there's enough strength in there for it to produce two, you then will get two new growths, because each one of those will grow a new growth. So your plant starts getting bigger at double the rate, providing it stayed healthy and fed well and all that sort of stuff, or fed correctly. Yeah, so that was my new plant. Blooms are gorgeous on it, a lovely dark colour. That lip on that one is broken, I do believe. Yes, it is. It's probably getting it in and out the car. But they're lovely deep coloured red blooms. They're really nice. So that's that. I'll find somewhere to put it now. I plonked it up here just for, last night when I came in the door I just needed to get it in here out of the way. So yes, so that's my new orchid. I've already updated my notes. I did that this morning to say I've got a new orchid and what it is. I mean, the current list of orchids stands at 165, but strictly speaking, it depends how you want to count the deces. Some of the deces have got a dozen actual individual plants in one pot. Well, I'm not counting them all, I'm just counting the pots. That's what you do, don't you? And I mean, there's some of my odont types. I know there's 2 plants in the pot, they got potted together. I'm going to stop doing that as something that they end up in a pot that's too big, and therefore it's easier to put a bit too much water in there that doesn't get used up, especially after you've disturbed the plants and after a repot. I'm cutting down on the moss when I start my repotting. We're not having quite so much. But I'm also going to seriously look at getting some more orchids mounted come that time of year. In Helen's talk she was on about, best time to repot is when you see new roots emerging and starting to push on, because you're gonna stress the plant by repotting it. Yes, agreed. You are possibly going to damage some of the older roots. Yes, agreed. Some orchids object strongly to being repotted and will just dump the older roots. It'll just give up on them. So the fact that you've got some new ones growing is a must. But I have another go at that. Yes, that is the best time, unless it's a time when there is so little growth potential on the plant that it's going to stall whatever you do. Like now, midwinter, really short days, no decent temperatures, light levels really low. These are not good growing conditions, so despite the fact that a plant's got some new roots coming out, it's not going to do much with them because it's not actively growing. So I'd prefer to wait for a better time when things are actively growing. Another reminder that Helen reminded me about, I mean I know, but I just don't think of it. You don't think of everything all the time, do you? Is the fact that a lot of orchid roots, literally down at cellular level, as the root grows, it adapts to its environment and becomes a type of root. Now that could be an aerial root, it could be a feeder root that's in some sort of medium, that could be cracks in the bark on a tree, could be the moss, it could be in amongst the roots of another plant, but it's not aerial, it's in something. And once roots grow and adapt, or you've also got attachment type roots, where roots are trying to grab hold of something to keep the plant safe, and they'll often flatten so that there's a greater surface touching whatever they're trying to grab hold of. They'll flatten the edge so they get a better grip. So, but yes, once a root has adapted to the environment that it grew into, it's very reluctant to change. Now, this is the point that's difficult, because it's you that will allow the circumstances to happen, but to avoid it means repotting much more frequently. You've got your brand new shiny bark, yeah? And like I've said before, you're going to water that very frequently because it's going to dry fast. But eventually that frequency will slow down a bit because the bark will start to hold moisture as it ages. And then once you get up like to a couple of years, it's going to start holding quite a bit more moisture. And it'll come to the point where it might be just about starting to break down, and it will be lasting quite a long time before watering. Now, any new roots that grow into that environment will adapt to that environment, i.e. quite moist, still got some air gaps, yeah, but staying moist for quite long periods. When you repot that and you put those roots into your shiny new bark, they might not adapt very well, because it's quite a major change to go from bark that's starting to break down to brand shiny new bark. How do you avoid it? Well, keep your plant in brand shiny new bark. In other words, don't let it get old. That way the roots go into an environment that is very, very similar to the environment they came out of. So they don't have to adapt. And it's another thing, like, you know, when you buy a plant and it's in moss, compacted moss, you take it out and put it in bark, chances are you'll lose a lot of them roots. And sometimes you can lose the plant as a consequence of trying to get a media more suited to your own environment from what it was in. These are the things we have to put up with, you know. And it is quite a big deal, quite honestly. It's we all know that, you know, if you're growing in organic media, it will break down. Over time it will break down. Moss is about the fastest, hotly followed by that cocoa fibre stuff. And whether it's in the chunks or the fibre form, it don't last forever. And with moss, if it's light and fluffy, with plenty of air, even when it starts to break down, it shouldn't degrade at a really rapid rate. And when the moss starts to degrade, providing it's not compacting, it's still got some air in there, all that's happening really is it's going to a lower pH much quicker than it did when it was new. So your pH in your pot will be lower. And your roots that grow into that environment will adapt to that lower pH and manage to still carry on somehow or other. And then you take it out of that environment and put those roots in a media that hasn't got a low pH. Are they going to adapt? Orchids are adaptable, don't get me wrong. These are extreme circumstances. But yeah, taking a plant out of moss and put it in bark, you're going to lose some roots, and sometimes you might even lose the plant. The change is too big. It's too much for the poor old things. And you can have the same sort of trouble, you know, like if you live in a much warmer environment sort of thing, where your pots are just drying out so fast, you can't keep up with the watering. You think, right, I'm going to stop using this medium-sized bark and switch to small bark. God, still not enough. I'm still watering. I tell you what I'm going to do. We're going to use small bark, half and half with sphagnum moss and perhaps some perlite, and that'll hold a lot more moisture. Well, yes it will, but is that still a good media for that plant? Was it doing well before, and the only problem was you not watering it frequently enough? And now you've taken it out of a light, airy mix with plenty of gaps and put it in something with far less air that's staying moist almost permanently. And some roots won't like that. Yeah, there's a dramatic change. So, I mean, some could say, I've said it myself in the past, if you're going to do a dramatic change from, say, moss to bark, well, do it a bit at a time. Yeah, the first repot you do, take it out of the moss, yes, and put it in half moss and half bark. So they've still got quite a bit of moss around the roots, but there's some bark in there as well. And then next time you repot, perhaps don't have much moss at all, and then another repot you can go straight to just bark. Change it gradually. But now you're looking at years worth of time to be able to achieve that. Most people are not patient enough to do all that. And if you've got a lot of plants, you're going to remember which ones you've done what to. You're going to have to take notes, aren't you? So it can get overcomplicated, and that's what I'm trying to do, is overcomplicate it so that I can then stand back and say, you can probably get away without doing hardly any of that. But there are plants with very, very sensitive roots that do not take kindly to change. They get stressed by the repot. They'll get stressed again if you try and change the media type. And that includes taking them out of old media that's breaking down and putting them in new media that's not. That is a dramatic change of environment for those roots. So with your more sensitive, I mean this pile up here, Cotylogenes, there's some of those that are renowned for sulking. You repot them and they won't grow anything for 2 years. They just sit there and do nothing. They just sulk. They just don't like the root disturbance. So there we go. I'm not going to look at individual plants or anything. We've had a look at my new one. And now that's Colmonara, which is, I forget what that's a cross between. I think it's Rhynchostelli and Oncidium, I think. I've forgotten. It's an intergeneric anyway. There's more than one genus tucked away in there. Might even be 3. I mean, you can have more than that. You know, you don't stop at 2. If you make an intergeneric from, say, Oncidium and Brassia, and then cross that with Miltonia, well, that's 3. And what if it was a Miltonia cross with a Brassia? Well, okay, you've got 2 lots of Brassia now, but you know, you can see how these intergenerics can get complex. Yes, so this cold is getting around my neck now, so I'm going to have to get back in the warm. I should have put my jumper on, shouldn't I? That would have helped. But it's also coming up to lunchtime, so yes, thanks for dropping by and all that. Thanks for all the support. Had another person bought me 20 coffees. Thank you very much. What you've just done is paid for the extra cost of that heater running day and night now to keep this place at 12-13 degrees with all these orchids in it, while it's only 3 or 4 degrees out there during the day. Yeah. Now when the daytime is up, like, you know, 14-15 degrees, this heater would hardly come on at all during the day. But for the last, well, couple of weeks or so, it's cutting in and out day and night. And I can't be doing with that door wide open to sacrifice some of my lounge heat out here. Otherwise me and Mojo are sitting there rattling. So yeah, so that's paid for the extra to keep this place at a at the temperature I've chosen over this period of time. That's the extra bit it would have cost me, so thank you very much for that individual. Greatly appreciated. You know, that's how it is in the winter time. The government cut the pensioners' winter allowance, unless you are. They said if you're on pension credit, you still get it. If you're on pension credit, you are so poor that you're probably not going to be able to afford your food, and you can't run a car and everything else. To be on that credit, you've got to be almost destitute. So those people still get it. And probably in their circumstances, it probably doesn't make a huge amount of difference because they still haven't got much. But yeah, so yeah, under normal circumstances, the amount I pay for energy builds up in the summer when I'm not using much, giving me a credit, which I dip into over the winter months, and that fuel payment pays for the difference of the increase. Yeah, so that it doesn't come out of my pocket, but this year it does. You know, I've got to pay for it. Got to come from somewhere. So there we go. But thanks for all the support for the channel. It is appreciated. Yeah, whether you just watch the videos, whether you watch and comment, irrespective of how much support, the most useful support that costs you absolutely nothing is the thumbs up. Have you done it yet? Subtle reminder. Thumbs up, please. Or, well, if you don't like the video, then obviously don't. But if you don't like the video, this is what I always say: what on earth are you still doing here watching right at the end of the video? Surely if you didn't like it, you'd have been gone. Over watching Miss Orchid Girl or something. But yeah, thanks for all the support. It is appreciated in whatever form, whether it's financial or whatever. And a reminder as well, a little sequence. I showed a video of how I get my pictures for pop-ups in the videos, so pictures of blooms. Oh, you've already been out there twice. Yeah, you don't want to go out, do you? You're just a nuisance. Yes, so having shown that, the pictures that I took at that particular point that I filed away for future use, I actually posted them on Facebook. So it's just reminded me to remind you people that I do have an Orchid Facebook group. The link's in the description, and it's a place where you can put pictures of your stuff and you can post questions with problems and things like that. There are lots of good growers in that Facebook group, a lot. So whatever your problem is, there will be people there to help. It probably won't be me. I don't go into that group very often, apart from authorising the posts, because it's a private group. You have to ask to join it, and there's a question as part of the group when you get there. You know, when you go to join, there's a question. If you don't answer it, I'll just delete the request. That's it. The question's there for a reason, and it's basically, how did you hear about the Facebook group? If your answer says, from your YouTube channel, you're in. But I do watch out for what I call groupie groups. People who collect groups. You know, you have a look at them, and they're a member of 875 groups. How much time is there in a day? How many minutes are there in a day? How much time could you possibly spend looking at 870 something groups? You can't, can you? You're collecting them. Everywhere you go on Facebook, you see a group, oh, I haven't done that one, I'll have that one. You'll probably never go back there again. Those people are of no use to my group whatsoever. I'd prefer to see people that are a member of 20 groups or something like that. And when I have a quick look at the list, some of them are orchid groups. It implies it's an orchid person. Welcome. But yeah, it's just a reminder that, you know, you can't post your pictures on YouTube. Yeah, but you can on the Facebook group, and there's plenty of help available over there if you have some problems. So just a reminder that that's there as well. And the links to all the places where you can offer financial support, either as a regular thing or one-off donations, all those links are in the description as well. That's the description of every video that I do, not just this one. They're permanent attachments, basically. So that'll do for today. What I'm up to this week as far as videos is concerned, I don't know. But with any luck, after tomorrow, or towards the end of tomorrow, the temperatures are going to come back up a bit. So we should get a bit better daytime temperatures, which means obviously this heater's not going to have to kick in and out all day long, as well as all night long. Yeah, there's been some bad weather around in this country, but compared with some other countries, I'm sure some people are thinking, you know what you're moaning about? You got 2 inches of snow? Oh, it's nothing. And it is nothing. We're just lousy at looking after ourselves when it snows. I think it's because we don't get enough practice. You keep chucking all that carbon into the atmosphere, we might get more practice, because it's not only going to get warmer in the summer and drier in places, it's also going to get wetter, windier and colder. Everything becomes more of an extreme. And I personally, this is not politics, this is science, I personally believe that we're stuck with it, because I think it's too little and too late. And I think the best thing we can do now is put our efforts into learning how to live with it. Because I don't think it can be fixed. It's too late. It's gone too far. Yeah? This magic figure that they came up with, we cannot have more than 1.5 degrees average over the globe increase, or all sorts of daft things are going to happen. Well, we've just done it. 2024 went over that limit. Virtually all temperature records were broken, wet records, flood records, they were all broken in the last 10 years. Perhaps we're just going to have to put up with it. We shall see. Anyway, like everything else, we don't get it as bad in this country as in some other places. So perhaps we ought to be grateful I'm still cold. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by, and look after yourself, stay safe, and if you're cold, stay warm, and if you're too hot, get in the shade. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.